concluding the three parables that Jesus spoke in Luke 15 about the one who is lost. First, he spoke about the parable of the lost sheep, that the shepherd left the 99 and went after the one that was lost. And after, he spoke about the lost coin that was lost in the house and later was found, and there was a celebration. And later, he spoke about the longer one that has more details, the prodigal son. I will not extend myself on this parable because it's well known, but I want to focus on a part of the story of the prodigal son that you haven't paid much attention, that has to do with you and me, that has to do with sincerity. We know that the prodigal son had two great moments of truth and sincerity in his story, one for good and the other for evil. The first moment, when he was the younger son, he didn't want to spend his life serving his father in the farm, obeying, and he knew that who would lead everything would be his older brother. He knew that he would always have to be in the shadow of the father, and after the father passing, his brothers. As he wanted to be someone in life and make his own decisions, he had the sincerity to face that inner desire, even though it was evil, and to speak to the father. I want my inheritance now. In other words, he killed the father while he was still alive, because he couldn't take the inheritance while the father was alive. But it's as if he was saying the following: for me you are dead, and what I want is just my inheritance. He was sincere and strict with his words. I can feel the blow that the father took when his son asked for the inheritance while he was still alive. Even though he knew that the son would get hurt, but he had nothing to do. It's as God works. This parable of the prodigal son represents lots of things. And the father here represents God. That at times, God being contradicted, he let his children do as they want, that they may learn in the hard way, because he tried to teach them in the easy way. So the father, certainly, before giving the inheritance to the son, he might have told him, "Don't do this, my son. Where are you going? This world is out there. You are young. What do you think will happen to you? You'll be in jeopardy." So you can imagine the father, before giving the inheritance to the son, he might have run out of arguments. But the son wanted that, and when someone places something in their head, when they are not determined to do the will of God, of their father, they are their own person. And there's no point of even trying. You who have been through this, you know it. When someone is convinced that they are right, no one will take that from their heads. Then the lessons from life come. If they don't learn in a good way, they will learn through the bad way. And it was the case of the prodigal son, which, by the way, the word prodigal, usually we think it means the son that returned home. But the word prodigal means the waster, the one who wasted everything he received from the father. And many waste the chances and opportunities and blessings and teachings that God gives us. So he had this moment of sincerity for evil. He faced what was inside him, and he paid the price. And he paid a high price. He lost everything. Then he had this second moment of sincerity and courage to face this which was inside him. The text says, when he found himself taking care of the swine, he lost everything, and he ended up working with swine. He didn't want to work for his father, then he worked for strangers and working with swine. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. It's interesting because the Jew does not eat pork. For a Jew that he was, it was the greatest humiliation he could take to eat pork. So he was taking care of pigs and he was hungry, and it's not that he couldn't, it's that he was not authorized to eat any pork. And when he was at the underground of the bottom of the pit, then he had his second moment of sincerity. The text says, but when he came to himself, in other words, facing his reality, looking within, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. This was the second great moment of sincerity from the prodigal son, which was a moment of truth and sincerity for good. Because in that moment, he looked within and he saw the foolish thing he had made. But he was not angry with the father, the brother, the owner of the swine, of God. No, he looked within and said, I sinned. I am to be blamed. I am responsible for this. And I tell you, who are listening to me, this moment was the most important moment in the life of the prodigal son, was the turn of the tide, when he faced his guilt, his reality. He was not blaming everyone, but instead he looked to himself, he humbled himself, and he went to speak to the Father. As he was courageous to do evil, he was courageous to do what is right, and he returned to the house of the Father. He faced the looks that people might have given him, even from his own brother, right? You see, I told you. You came back like this. You lost everything. He faced it. But he did. He was courageous to do the right thing, as he was courageous to do the wrong thing. So, this moment of truth, unfortunately, is what is missing for many to go back to the house of the Father, to go back to the path of God, the one that they left long ago, even though they might be in the house of the Father, to face the real condition and recognize the truth is, I made a mistake. I won't be blaming anyone, so-and-so did this and the other did that. No, I will speak about myself, because I'm here because of me. So, this moment is a moment that liberates, because as long as the person lives a lie, because it is a lie, let's say that the prodigal son could say, people deceived me, my friends took everything from me, I have nothing and they left me, I'm here because nobody helped me, I was young, my father could send a group of his hired servants to rescue me, no one checked on me. Have you heard anyone speaking like this? Anyone? I was bad and no one checked on me. He could have said that, but it would have been a lie, because the truth was that he was in that situation because of his own choices, Others might have wronged him, failed him, yes, but the main flaw was his with himself. And when you fail yourself, the best thing is not to fail, is to obey, not to have to learn through pain. Better is to learn through wisdom or others' mistakes. You've seen others' mistakes, so learn with them. Be wise. This is the best option. But if you wrong someone, so the best thing you can do after making a mistake is to be quick, to recognize your mistake, to be honest and sincere with yourself. Stop deceiving, trying to sugarcoat your mistake. Say, I made a mistake. I was angry, I held a grudge, I had malice in my heart, I blamed people, but the truth is, I made also mistakes. Assume your mistake, because the quicker you recognize your mistake and be truthful and bring to yourself the blame and face your mistakes and correct them, the quicker you will come out from the bottom of the pit. Of the bottom of the pit that you find yourself in. This is the lesson that God gives us. And there are many others through the prodigal son's story. We need to be courageous for the truth. When we are leaning on the truth, who is God, we have the courage to say and live the truth, as hard as it may be, because we know we have God's support. When I work with the truth, I have the support of the Lord of the truth. But when I work with lies, I have the influence of the father of lies, which is the devil. So I don't want to be allied with the devil and live a lie. I want to be allied with God. So to be allied with God, I need to lay my life on Him, not on money, position, pride. I need to lean my life on Him. If I'm leaning my life on Him, and He says, the truth will set you free, then I will face the truth for good and do what must be done. If I need to confess my mistake, to receive the consequences of what I've done, to face the consequences of my mistakes and say, I did what was wrong, I said this in the past, but it's my fault. If someone wronged me, let them deal with themselves, but I made a mistake. When you take this stance quickly, the door of the house of the Father will be opened to you, and you will be back to peace, to God's tranquility, to God's household, regardless of what you've done. Because this lesson is also there. He rejoices with the one who was lost and now is found. So be courageous to do what is right and prevail in life, as you are courageous to follow a lie that led you to the evil side. If you have made it this far, it is because you want to be a better person. I challenge you to choose one thing you learn in today's video and put it into practice. I'll see you here next time.